Okay, in the interest of time, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to our leadership series for April. We're going to be hearing on how to create a high-performing team from Christine Victorino. Christine Victorino serves as an associate chancellor at UCR. Dr. Victorino serves as a principal advisor to university leadership and plays a key role in developing and executing UCR's strategic vision and goals. Dr. Victorino completed her PhD in education at UC Santa Barbara and holds an adjunct faculty appointment in UCR's Graduate School of Education. Join me in welcoming Christine.
Wow, we really just jumped right in there. Okay, since there are 24 people and I recognize a few of you, friendly faces who I haven't been able to see in a little while, would people be willing to do a go around and just say their name and their position and how long they've been at UCR? And you don't have to turn on your video for that. Okay, I guess I should sort of manage what order then.
Tara.
Hey Tara.
How are you?
Good, it's good to see you.
Well, good to me. Tara Brown, College of Engineering, Student Affairs.
All right, I'm just going to go in order from what I have here. Joylene?
Yes, Joy Solis. I'm the AP director at for CNAS. Been here about 12 to 13 years now.
Cool. Jane Kim?
Hi, Jane Kim, Assistant Director at University Honors. I've been at UCR for about 10 years now.
Hey Jane, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Alex Ruiz?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alex Ruiz, undergraduate admissions, and I've been here about 18 years.
Wow, 18 years. Amanda Gray.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amanda Gray, Environmental Programs Manager over at EH&S. I've been here about 10 years.
10 years, okay. Ben Tusher?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Tusher. I'm the production manager for the Department of Theater, Film, and Digital Production, and I've been here about a year and a half.
All right, newbie. Alexis?
Hi, I'm Alexis Rambo. I have been on campus for about 7 years, and I am a financial analyst, and I support the Chancellor and Provost office.
Hey, Alexis. Emily McCoy?
Hi, I'm Emily. I work in housing services and I've been on campus for 16 years and I'm also an alumna.
Awesome, 16 years. Okay, who else do we have? Alton Caldwell.
Hello, sorry I'm running a little behind. I had a student last minute during these times, as you know. And I am a case manager over at Case Management. And is there other things that we're asking or answering?
Oh, how long have you been here?
Oh, how long? Coming up on 3 years in November.
Awesome. All right, Evelyn Samayoa, if I pronounced that correctly.
Oh, hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. I'm Evelyn. I work in development for Chaz, and I've been here about 4 years, and I'm also an alumnus.
Awesome, 4 years. Okay, June Dizon.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am in Graduate Student Affairs at BCOE, Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. Nice to meet everyone.
Cool, same last name as my mom.
I've been here for 4 years.
4 years, okay. Jill Huff.
Hi, Jill Huff. I'm an administrative coordinator in development. I've been here about a year and a half.
Hey, Jill.
Hey.
Jennifer Copley.
Hi, I'm Jen Copley. I have been at UCR for almost 8 years in CNAS Undergrad Academic Advising Center as a CNAS Scholars Program Coordinator.
Thanks. Kathy Red.
Sorry, there goes the microphone. Hi, I'm Kathy Red. I'm the director of the CNAS Enrollment Management Center and Graduate Student Affairs Center, and I've been here 23 years.
Wow, she's like the winner. 23 years. Okay. Christy Salazar Nugent.
Hi, I am Christy Salazar Nugent, and I am an academic advisor in the political science econ department.
How many years?
It's more than 13.
Okay, great. Natasha Kashifour.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Director of Constituent Research and Development. I've been here for 13 years and I'm also an alumna.
Awesome. Okay, who do we have? Mary Longton. Hi, Mary. Oh, you're on mute.
I just admitted in Christine, so I don't know.
Oh, okay, sorry, Mary. So we're just introducing ourselves, our position, and how long we've been on campus.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm a facilities access person for Chaz Facilities Management. So I do keys and have done room scheduling. That's normally part of my job, and building management. So I work with Paul Richardson and Brittany and Julie.
And how many years have you been?
I've been here 20 years.
Wow, second prize. 20 years. Okay, who else do we have? Rochelle Enriquez.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Rochelle Enriquez, Program Coordinator for Native American Student Programs. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am a UCR alum, and I've been here over 18 plus years.
Welcome. Okay, we're getting lower in the alphabet, so Sarah Dillon.
There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm the HR Director in CNAS, and I've been with UCR for 5 years.
Great. Tanya Adams.
Good morning, everyone. Tanya Adams. I'm a Human Resources Manager in the Administrative Services and Strategic Executive team, and I've been here for about 5.5 years.
Thanks, Tanya. Okay, Tanya Wine.
Hi, I'm Tanya Wine. I am the Academic Resource Manager in Chaz, and I have been at UCR almost 25 years.
Oh, there you go, 25 years. First place, back into first. Okay, and Veronica.
Good morning, everyone. Veronica Ruiz, and I am with the Chancellor Provost and the Planning, Budget, and Administration Organization. I've been on campus for about 16 years.
Okay, thanks, Veronica, and Brittany and Julie. Thanks for inviting me to be here today. So I don't know all of you, I know some of you. It's great to see a cross section of people from the university, ranging from 1.5 years to 25 years on campus. I've been here almost 8 years now, and so I feel like I really am a real UCR person now. I think probably for the first 5 years, I was really acclimating myself to the culture of the campus, understanding my contributions and understanding the expectations of me. So I'm kind of in my second 5 years now, so I'm slowly becoming ingrained and becoming a veteran of the campus. And so, yeah, I feel like I have a lot to learn for the people who've been here for more than 15 years. They really have institutional knowledge about the campus that I really value. So yeah, without further ado, yeah, I'm Christine. I'm here working in my bedroom like many of you. I've been trying to slowly adjust to coming back on campus now that I've been fully vaccinated for a few weeks. I've been starting to work in the office 2 days a week, and it is a bit of a transition, especially as we're talking about our topic today, high-performing teams. You know, our team has been online for about a year, and we've been really adjusting. And I find that like anything, high-performing teams function well in the online environment, just as well as they function well in the in-person environment. And so all of the things that we do well, in some ways, are amplified in the online environment. And the things that we don't do well are amplified in the online environment. So generally, I'm pleased that our team has been functioning pretty well, but we're going to see how it goes as we transition back to probably a hybrid environment and then eventually back to a fully in-person environment, perhaps in the fall. Although, who knows, anything is possible. And I think one of the aspects of a high-performing team is that you're flexible. Okay, so I'm going to spend about 15 minutes talking, and then we'll just completely open it up to questions about the topic or any questions you have about the university in general. Okay, let's see if I can share my screen. Okay, that's the first slide. All right, can everybody see it? Okay, I'm going to also hide my self view. That's something that I've been trying to do for the last few weeks, is stop looking at myself, because that takes a lot of cognitive load for meetings, just constantly looking at myself all day. So that's something, if you want to try, just turn your video off because it's just so exhausting to look at yourself all day. Okay, so secrets of great teamwork. I had a whole bunch of ideas when thinking about this topic. I've been on a whole range of teams, ranging from the lowest on the totem pole to the top of the totem pole to being equivalent to my peers. Everything from the work environment to committees and working groups and task forces. And I've had the opportunity to interact with various people on this call in many of those capacities. And there's some core pieces that I think that I tried to think through, contribute to a strong team. And I thought, rather than writing down my random ideas, I thought I'd look through the literature and see if any resonate with me. So I found this article from the Harvard Business Review, and it's got basically fundamentals on what makes a great team. So I thought I would borrow their general principles and then talk about how they apply to my experience, specifically at UCR. Okay, so a compelling direction. So the first ingredient to a great team is having a compelling direction. And probably there's no other place in America, as the chancellor would say, that's as transformative, rapidly changing, and contributing to sort of America's ideals than UCR. So all of us have a compelling reason to be at UC Riverside. In the last 2 years, US News and World Report cited us as #1 in the country for social mobility. And who wouldn't want to be part of that? And every day, our university is not just transforming lives for students, it's transforming the state, but it's also transforming, as a lot of you know, the university is changing. It's so dynamic and it's moving so fast that it's often hard to keep up. And so I think groups like LEAD and Staff Assembly, Coro, development programs, so many of those things help our staff work through what it means to be part of such a dynamic university. But this is something that all teams, regardless of whether you're in facilities or in the chancellor's office, can be proud of, that you're proud of an institution that does great things. Despite all of the challenges, we all have this compelling mission and vision for what UCR does and tries to accomplish. So that's the easy part, the big picture, and the extent to which you are sharing with your teams, UCR appearing in the news, UCR's great accomplishment, Inside UCR is Good each week, reminding us of all the amazing Can you all hear me? I can't hear you.
We can hear you, Christine.
Oh, okay, sorry. I just had I was being asked to mute. Okay, all right, you didn't miss anything. I was worried I'd have to repeat the last few minutes. Okay, so yeah, so we're all part of this great university, and the extent to which you all share that, that work either through Inside UCR or that shares sort of the amazing work that staff, students, and faculty do every day. I know faculty get a lot of the attention, but it's a lot of the unsung heroes. The staff, of which I consider myself a staff person, really do the hard work behind the scenes to make so much of UCR's mission happen. So when we go around the country and people are like, wow, UCR is doing really great things, what's your secret sauce? And so we've spent the last few years trying to figure out what our secret sauce is. And we've come down to 3 components. And it's not 3 components in isolation, it's 3 components that build upon each other. The first component being culture, then our people, and then our programs. And so people were like, okay, tell us what program or what thing we can do to make our university as great as UCR. What's the program? And you can't have a program in isolation. You can't translate one idea and make it happen at another institution. It's really built on culture and people. And so I think when I think about the people who've been at UCR 15, 20, 25 years, they really helped build the culture of UCR. And that culture is really focused again on our mission of student success, diversity, and excellence. And so that's been really core to UCR for 20 plus years. A lot of people attribute it to Chancellor Ray Orbach, who really expanded the vision through the university and really focused on diversity and excellence as core values of the university. And so I'm really grateful for the people who've been here that long, because they've been real stalwarts for UCR's longstanding culture. And so because we have that culture that's well established, we bring in people who share that culture and who acclimate to that culture really quickly, who are focused on excellence, diversity, and student success. And those people buy into the culture and they promote the culture. And so without this sort of foundation of culture and people, the programs that we come up with, the programs that we create, and the way that we interact with each other are really built on that culture and the people that we bring to UCR. So like I said, now that I've been here almost 8 years, I really feel like I'm part of that culture, and I'm one among many people who really contribute to it. So I can bring any program or idea I want to the university, but until I really understand what it's embedded in, those things can't be successful. And if you're somebody who's really into the business literature, they say culture eats strategy for lunch every day. And I don't really think I understood what that meant for a long time. But at UCR, it's the culture. You can have whatever strategy or idea or plan you have, but if the culture of the organization isn't in place, the strategy can't happen. And that happens at the macro level of the university, but it happens in our individual units. And if we don't have a strong, positive culture and a compelling direction, then it's hard to make all of the other pieces work. Okay, so that's component one of great teams. Let's see if I can get this to work. Okay, strong structure. So those of you who are business officers or team leaders, you're all really good at structure. And structure is sort of the bedrock of how at least any team works. And I think about the team that I have at work, and I think about the team that I have at home, my family, my kids, my husband. We need structure. We need like a schedule. We need predictability. We need to know what is happening next week. And we need to feel like that we can trust the structure. And so that level of predictability and the use of just things like agendas for meetings and set meeting schedules and following through on action items, you know, we often take that for granted. One, because we are so busy. So I'm an incredibly, as you can imagine, I've got a lot of stuff on my plate. I have 3 kids. I have, you know, the chancellor's office. I have the university. I've got task forces. And so I need as much structure to my day as possible. Sometimes I have to be flexible because, you know, I have to cancel a meeting here and there because I'm double booked, or a crisis comes up and everything goes to the side. But it's the bedrock of what I do. And the people who help me stay organized, I rely on greatly. And so sometimes we think, okay, we're too busy, so we can't have an agenda and a set of action items listed out every time we meet. But having that structure in place so that you can be flexible really makes things work. And it's also about keeping ourselves and others accountable. So as a leader of a team, sometimes the hardest thing is to keep myself accountable. And it's easy to say, because I'm in a position where, you know, I have a lot of responsibility, it's like I often will say, has everybody else done this, and not focused on myself. And so Alton and I were on a task force this past year, the campus safety task force, and so much of that work was holding myself accountable. Am I sending agendas on time? Am I sending materials on time? Am I following through with all of the requests and pieces of information and input I'm getting from across campus? And so holding myself accountable is one thing, and then holding other people accountable. And when you supervise people, holding people accountable is important. but it's really linked to the next point that I'm going to make. But the ability of you to hold people accountable, as you know, we're all in performance appraisal time, shouldn't happen once a year. It should kind of happen all the time. And it's not holding people accountable for doing things poorly. It's also praising people when they do things well and constantly giving other people feedback. And so if you get into a mode of providing regular feedback through all of the structure that we create, that feedback loop just becomes natural and normal and not unusual and something that you build up over a year and then you finally give feedback to a person. It kind of has to happen all the time. And I work on myself to be as direct as possible and as regularly as possible so that nothing is a surprise. And it's easy to say those things, but it's harder to do. And so it goes back to keeping ourselves accountable. Okay, so the next piece is a supportive context. So in the first two pieces, it's like, yeah, UCR is the most transformative university. We're constantly changing. We have a strong focus on student success, diversity, excellence. We have structure. But with all of that, as you know, we need a supportive context because we all have a range of things that we need to attend to, whether it's in our office and stress and strain of underfunding or understaffing, or the stress and strain of personal responsibilities. And so the extent to which that you can create trust, psychological safety, and recognition that, you know, it's not always just the one person's responsibility or one person's fault. There's always pretty much a context in place. And so, you know, somebody might be a high performer for 6 months, but they go through a rough patch, or somebody is a poor performer, and recognizing that, you know, what are the extra supports necessary to help that individual thrive? And each individual's needs are different. Something that I've really tried to hone, and I know the chancellor is also very good at this, is the importance of self-awareness. When things aren't going well in your team, you know, it's easy to identify all of the things that other people aren't doing well. I think the harder piece is, what am I not doing well? And so oftentimes when I'm pushing and not getting the result I think I want, or the change that I think I'm looking for, I then have to look at myself. Am I the problem? And to the extent to which you kind of say, okay, what am I doing and what can I do better? That's helped me be a better team member and a team leader. And those are the harder things to do when you're really busy. You need that quiet time to look inward, to figure out what are the pieces that I can do better, or where are the pieces that I've been pushing so hard, where can I let go and allow other people to kind of move in. So I'm not perfect at it, but I think it's something that we can all work on. And then emotional intelligence and learning to improve or optimize our communication patterns, and really listening to other people. Those are all the pieces of a supportive context that are really critical to strong teams. And when I say all these things, they matter at the unit level, but they also matter at the university level and what it means to be at UCR. So these are all things that we try to work on. I don't think that we're perfect, but yeah, they're important, at least to me personally and in my experience. Okay, last piece is a shared mindset. That might seem obvious. Structure is one thing, a supportive context is another thing. It's that when you have a team, not everybody does the same thing. The chancellor's office is a really good example. There's the chancellor, there's myself, there's the chancellor's executive assistant, there's our front desk reception, we have a policy analyst and a communications person. All of us do very, very different things. But I don't, you know, it's easy to say that there's a hierarchy where Tim is the most important person and we're all there to support him. I think what makes our offices special is that there is an acknowledgement that Tim is the chancellor, but there is also an acknowledgement that we all contribute equally in our own different way. And that without one person being there and contributing optimally, the team doesn't function well. So As an example, we had a transition this past year with the executive assistant to the chancellor. And you're not going to realize how important executive assistant is until that person leaves the position, right? And so nothing functions well in our team without understanding everyone's contributions and recognizing equal value and equal contribution. Sure, we have different power levels of power. We have different levels of pay, obviously, but the way our office works, we try every day to recognize everyone's contributions. So we're not perfect, but it's important that you don't have factions. You don't have sort of like, well, this is the advising team, this is the financial team, this is the events team, this is, I think a recognition that every individual or group makes their own significant contribution is really important. So these are things, I pulled it from the literature, but I do feel like they aligned with my sort of experience. And there's a whole range of things we can talk about. I'm going to pause for a second and look at the chat. Okay, all right. So no question from Natasha, just a validation, which is also really nice. Okay, so if those are the 4 components, the one thing that this article was helpful in doing is like evaluating your team. And like I said, evaluating your team doesn't happen once a year, it should happen kind of regularly. And so measuring output is one way. What are the metrics that we can use to determine whether our team is being effective? In our office, it's like, how many meetings have we successfully completed and run? How many events have we successfully completed and run? Where are we on the strategic plan? And where are we on hires? There's a whole, or task forces or committees. So there's a whole range of things in our office. There's a general hum. And so it's pretty easy to determine when we're going at a pretty good clip. But because that's easy and we have a general hum, when things go kind of off kilter, everything kind of goes off kilter. So kind of measuring that and seeing, are we at the right level? Are we too busy? Should we like scale things down a bit for a little while? Or are we not busy enough? Are we not responsive enough? So kind of constantly measuring your output and figuring out what those right metrics are, whether it's number of events, number of meetings, number of goals accomplished, number of transactions. There's a range of ways to measure things. Evaluating collaborative ability. That's really hard to do, but it goes to that last point about everybody contributes. And when everybody contributes, there's a high level of communication happening. And I really trip myself up when I under communicate. And as a university, we all trip ourselves when we under communicate. So sometimes over communicating is the right thing, but what's the right type of communication? Is it like 10 emails? Is it a phone call? Is it a message on Slack? Is it an in-person meeting? So we leverage all of those things. We have like a weekly staff huddle. We Zoom call each other all throughout the day. We bundle a bunch of questions for the chancellor rather than bugging him constantly throughout the day. So collaborative ability is really it's hard to measure and evaluate, but you know when it's right. You know it works well when everybody knows exactly what's going on. And people can't collaborate if they don't know how. And people often feel left out if they aren't in the know. Obviously, you can't always be in the know on everything. There are things that are confidential, but this links to my next point. So if you have people at different levels within your unit or within an organization, are you giving people the opportunity to develop into the next level or to learn from their peers? And so what we try to do is have as much as possible. So I do a set of things, but I try to bring people along on those different things. They may not have the same level of insight or experience that I have, but I try to bring our team members along. So we have a communications person that helps with the chancellor's videos or his speeches and things like that. But I try to include her on things where they're not directly related, or she doesn't have a direct link to, because I think, one, it helps her see what I do, but it also helps her see what the larger context is for our office. And so the extent to which everybody is developing at the rate that makes sense for them. Again, some people are happy where they are and they don't want to ever change their position, but can they learn a new skill? Can they learn how to manage a Zoom meeting? Can they learn how to create shared documents? Can they learn how to create a set of talking points? And the extent to which every member of our team is pushing their skill set and are thriving, I think is good. But also, again, going back to recognizing the context. Not everybody's development is going to be at the same level throughout their career. So one day somebody might be ready to go to graduate school and they're all in for a few years, but for some, they don't want to go to graduate school, but they might want to take a course in extension. So I think one way to evaluate your team, this is not necessarily how to evaluate an individual, is to look at these three different things. What are the metrics for our team? So the metrics for an effective team, the metrics for how well we're collaborating, and then the extent to which each person on the team is learning and thriving. So I'm going to stop there. I'll stop sharing. We're at a good time, 11:34. So maybe I'll stop and we can talk generally about teams and challenges or strengths or different experiences people want to share about their team. And again, it doesn't have to be me talking. Hopefully it's not me talking. And then we can save a few minutes if people have questions about the university in general. So feel free to raise your hand, or you can put something in the chat. And if nobody has one, I know people, I know your names now, so I can just call on you. All right, I'm gonna, because I can see your smiling face. Jane Kim, is there anything here that I've talked about that resonates with you, or that you think differently about, or you want advice on?
No, I mean, I was kind of laughing when you said culture eats strategy for breakfast every day, because that's so true. Because sometimes we'll have all these ideas and, do a program logic model and all these things. But then when you present it to staff, it's like, well, that's not how we're going to do things here. So that really resonated with me. I did have a question, though. So, if you do have a certain culture, and, for the most part, it's good, but there's some parts of that culture where you feel like, oh, I'd really like to shift that maybe a little bit. How do you start doing that as a leader?
Well, that culture, it takes a long time. I mean, especially in a place like the University Honors Program that's established over probably decades, right?
Yeah.
I'll take a cue from the chancellor. I think when he came to UCR, the best, we were always kind of like, oh, we're UCR, we're great, our students are great, but we're not UCLA or UC Berkeley. It was kind of like a ho-hum, kind of like, we're great, but we're not as great as Berkeley. And he really tried to change that culture, that we are great. We're as great as any other university in this country. And you know what? It took him at least 5 years for people to like buy into that. And it took other people to buy into that. And it doesn't happen overnight. And you're going to get a lot of criticism. So that happens at a meta level, but I know what you're talking about, Jane. How do you change a culture in an office?
Yeah.
It's really hard. I think it starts with one, acknowledging the culture that exists, right? And so when I talk about how the chancellor talked about changing the culture of UCR, you have to recognize the aspects of the culture that aren't serving your unit or your university right away. So is there a lingering culture that needs to change? And can you call that out? Sometimes that's really hard. Like maybe that culture is, oh, we just make it up as we go along and we figure it out, right? Or maybe that culture is the boss is always right and the boss tells us what we do and we always just follow that, right? And in some ways, it's recognizing what the culture is and saying what works well and what doesn't. And then really working strategically as you hire people and as you evaluate people on on what are the aspects of the culture that you want to validate and grow, and what are the aspects of the culture that don't serve anymore, and empowering the people on your team to really focus on the pieces that make sense. And so I think, like Jade, it is not easy. I've been in the chancellor's office 5 years now, and it's only now taking hold. And so you have to celebrate the little wins. And so when you see people embracing that culture without you kind of forcing it, that's when you know you've had a few wins. When people are saying the things that you want them to say without you having to remind them, then you know you're having some of those wins. And I guess it is the hardest thing to do. Culture is the hardest thing to change. But there are things that you can do, but I think the first thing is calling out the aspects of the culture that don't serve well. And that is really, really hard. And I think the chancellor is a good example. Like his first few years, people are like, who is this guy? And what is he saying? And I don't quite get it. And he's not perfect for sure. And he'll be the first to admit it. But it's sometimes calling out the things that don't serve.
Thank
I
you.
hope that helps.
Yeah, no, it was. Thank you.
All right, I see Kathy has her hand up, and then there are a couple questions in the chat.
Hi, yeah, I was gonna say, this has been the year when we were, challenged in many new ways, and something that I struggle with, even though I feel confident about my team, is when outside things derail us from our goal, right? And I'll tell you the one, I'm going to be honest about the thing that is derailing us right now. It's the campus decision not to survey the staff about their concerns about coming back to campus. That one thing, it's dominating every discussion, and we're having trouble focusing on what's important. I'm having trouble getting them to focus on what's important about us coming back to campus and hear everybody's concerns. Instead, they're kind of churning about this anger. And so I wondered if you have any tips for how you have dealt with that in your past in teams that you've.
There are no tips because this is an unprecedented time. And we've been talking about it at the leadership level. And so the thing about returning from a pandemic, like going into a pandemic, unprecedented. Going back to work from a pandemic, unprecedented. We can have every policy that says telework is an option, flexibility is an option. We can have policies written up the wazoo, and we can have surveys done. But again, this goes back to culture, is that we don't have a culture of telework. We don't have a culture of trusting relationships between supervisors and direct reports. Those things existed before the pandemic, and they're amplified now that we have to go back. On top of that is all of the mental health and anxiety that people are feeling about going back to work. We've internalized this idea that you have to stay home to be safe and to do your job well. And then to say to somebody, okay, flip the switch and go back to work. You can't just turn that on and say, okay, I'm going to start going back. So there is no simple solution, Kathy. And we did talk about surveys. The issue with the surveys, we can do a survey today, and then the governor could say, we're opening tomorrow. And then the survey results don't apply anymore. So that's the issue with the survey. We are going to do surveys and focus groups because we recognize that. But what I think, and the chancellor is working on a video today to talk about the reopening. But what we've been talking about the leadership level is it's not about the reopening and the policies and the step-by-step. It's the culture of embracing more flexible work. And we don't have that culture, and we can't create it overnight because we didn't have that culture before the pandemic. Imagining that we can just have a culture of flexible remote work, trusting relationships between supervisors and direct employees, we're not going to be able to have that overnight. And so I wish I could give you an answer of how we're going to navigate this process, but I think so much of it is going to have to be it's going to have to be determined at the unit level, but I think that the extent to which the chancellor, provost, deans, vice chancellor signaled that this is a culture change for us and that it's going to be messy and we have to be flexible. I think that's the piece we have to acknowledge, that people are feeling uncertainty and anxiety about it.
Oh yeah, you talked about that, about having predictability, and we all know we haven't had predictability, right? But I love the word unprecedented, because that helps you frame. I said that to my team the other day. I said, they're like, well, you're never going to get the students to stay 6 feet away from my desk. And I said, but wait a minute, we don't have to do business the same way we did it before. We can change the configuration of the office. Let's not think we have to do it exactly how we did it before. But you're right that the signaling from above about the flexibility will be helpful, because, of course, we also hear the faculty are churning a little bit. So
yes, they are. But I think it's just, we just don't, it's the lack of uncertainty, and people are tired of there's pandemic fatigue, there's uncertainty fatigue, and people just want certainty and clarity. And I think we have to acknowledge that people are tired, uncertain, stressed out, Zoom fatigue, the whole thing, and say, we're going to work through this together. And again, it goes back to this compelling vision. Why are we here? We're here for our students. And what can we do for our students? And we might not have all of the answers today, but we're going to work it out. And so again, it's like optimistic. I don't have to supervise your people, and it's really hard, but it's in part acknowledging the anxiety that people are feeling. And I think we don't have a good track record in doing that. We don't, good supervisors do that, but not all supervisors say, this is really hard. And we've never reopened a university ever. And so I can give you the list of, I can't give you a checklist of all the things that we have to do this right. We just have to say, this is the direction. Most important thing is our students. Most important thing is that we give them a quality experience. I recognize your anxiety going through this process, but we're going to work through it, and we're going to make mistakes along the way. But yeah, you don't all have to show up at work on Monday. It's going to be a long runway. Okay, let's see if I can answer another question. Again, this is all just my experience.
So I know we have a couple questions in the chat. One of them is, how have you managed the balance between diversity and inclusion without sacrificing fit and culture?
Okay, how have you managed the balance between diversity and, okay. Tara, I'm not sure I'm going to answer this question right. Maybe you want to expand upon it a little bit, just so that I'm getting the nuance here.
So I recognize that the importance of diversity and varying perspectives. I embrace it. I support it. I actively advocate for it. But I also do hiring. And so it is important that I hire someone who doesn't necessarily look like me or doesn't necessarily think like me, but still has to fit with the openness and the questioning and the challenging culture of my unit. And it becomes easier to, as you say, because we have a culture, in many places it becomes easier just to choose someone who
is the same.
Yes.
Okay, I get it. And I'm looking at Julie here because she served on a lot of search committees with me. So I think this goes back to the kind of the comment that I made with Jane, is that we have an existing culture, and a lot of it is really positive because it is focused on student success, diversity, excellence at the big picture level. But there can be aspects of our culture in our smaller units that don't serve us well. And so it's kind of like, we do things one way and everybody does it the same way, and we're just going to do it that way forever. And that can be not a great part of the culture, right? And so when we hire vice chancellors or provosts, we look at sort of their track record of success, level of effectiveness, their values. Did their values align with our values? And then we think, what can this person bring to our team? And sometimes you have to take a risk, right? Because the chancellor himself is very focused on diversity. He doesn't want to have a group of people who all look the same and talk the same, because if we wanted the most qualified, the most experienced people on the chancellor's cabinet, they would all look like Kim, right? And we have tons of candidates who look like Kim and who are very qualified for jobs. But we're very intentional about the importance of diversity. And so sometimes that means taking a risk and hiring somebody who doesn't fit the culture. And then that other side of that risk is the extent to which you're able to mentor and guide and support that person to be successful. And so some people may have less experience. Some people may not have a traditional path to an obvious position. So if you're hiring an advisor and they haven't checked all of the boxes. But if you see somebody who can align with UCR's values, who has an eagerness to work and learn, are you willing, the question is when you hire, are you willing to put all those supports in place to see that person thrive, even though they don't fit the traditional mold of your office? So it takes a lot of work. I'll say that. It takes a lot of work to hire, and sometimes it's a risk, but sometimes the benefits of hiring somebody who maybe doesn't fit that mold can often be great. So it's not easy, but it's when hiring, you can't just think of hiring as when you first bring somebody into the door and then it's sink or swim. It's also how much time for that person to be successful, and it takes a lot of time. And Alex was on a search committee with me recently, so he understands that as well. Okay, next question. You're welcome. How do you inspire the people around you to do more positive reinforcement? I work hard to keep the morale of my team high, but it can be difficult when we only ever hear about what we're not doing right. There's always room for improvement, of course, but I'd love to hear about what works more often too. So I don't know your unit, so it's hard for me to speak specifically about what I can say to help. Yikes. So if you only hear about the stuff you're not doing right, that's rough. That's really rough. So if your team, and so this goes back to self-awareness, if you're hearing things that focus on what you're not doing well, it does take some inner work to say, could I be contributing to this? You know, am I doing something wrong? Or what can I do better? So it starts with you yourself. One, am I not doing something right? And having a frank and sometimes difficult conversation with the supervisor on how can I be better? And sometimes when you're willing to talk to your supervisor and say, you know what, I'm hearing you, what can I do better and help me do better? I think that's a really frank and important discussion. And as a supervisor, if somebody came to me and said that, I would just be like, what a relief. This person wants to do better. And we can put like an actual plan in place to work through it. So that's one thing. The other thing is when I have a team who's struggling or a group of people who's struggling, it's like celebrating the small wins and giving them the opportunity to have as many small wins as possible. And so if that's just like showing up to a meeting on time and having an agenda ready, it's like, woo, we did it. We actually did it this time. Good job. And so, you know, small wins, identifying small wins, and then the bigger wins. And so if you're hearing from on high that you're not doing stuff right, that's tough. But I think the most important thing you could do is have that frank and open conversation, put everything on the table and the willingness to improve, and then identifying some small wins to celebrate and continuing to do that over time. Natasha, did that help? Is there anything else I can expand on?
That was helpful, thank you.
Okay. Sarah, you talked about being one the finance team, not the advising team. How would you recommend bringing the department together to view themselves as one larger team rather than grouped by their function? Yeah, that's that. So if you have a group that's separated by function, that is another culture piece, right? If the culture, I don't know, Sarah, if you're in CNAS, CHAS, or other place, maybe that's part of the culture that's been embedded and that needs to change, right? It's like, you're the finance team, you're the advising team, you do your own thing, and you don't need to talk to each other. So that is an embedded culture. They're kind of unwritten rules or explicit rules that people just don't think that they can change. And so is there a point where somebody says, well, this culture isn't serving us well because it creates a gap in X, Y, or Z? So if I don't know what this team's doing, then I can't help them. And it becomes kind of like this tit for tat. Well, this person wasn't available at this time, and so I couldn't get this done. And those are the things that are operational in nature, but the underlying issue there is the culture. And so if the culture and the direction and the vision is, okay, what can we do to help students? It's not that the advisors are the only ones who are helping students, it's also the admin finance team that are also working like crazy behind the scenes to do it. And so what are the things that bring you together? And so addressing sort of the culture piece that separates you, and sort of finding, I mean, if I could give some small suggestions, is opportunities for people to just learn about each other's work, cross-train, go to meetings. Is there an advisor who goes to your financial team meetings? Is there a finance person who goes to the advising meetings? And so just starting small with learning about what each other's jobs are. And over time, those champions can be champions for the other team. You'll find that, you know, if the finance team is doing a great job, an advisor might be the first one to say, we really need to loop this group in because they can help us do our job better. Or a finance person says, these people are amazing advisors. We need to find ways to help them as much as possible because their workload is really large. And so the extent to which people learn each other's jobs, even in small ways, I think can be positive. But yeah, it does speak to underlying culture, I think. Sarah, did you want to expand a little bit?
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so we have just 5 minutes before lunch. Do people have questions about the university or fall reopening or anything in general? Or just about the topic?
Christine, I wanted to make a comment about what you just said about collaborating like that with different areas, or how you brought your communications person into different teams or along with you. I know Brittany asked Brianna, our intern, to join me in some of the work group meetings and different meetings that I have, so she can kind of see what do we all do here. And I know the Disney Institute, when they think of a new ride, they bring everyone to the table. Custodian, maintenance, dining, everyone comes to the table. And that's how Tinkerbell ride was from a custodian who had the idea of making everything big instead of trying to make everything small. So great ideas can come from those outside, those fresh lenses. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it takes work. I mean, I can say this all, and it can be really optimistic, but there are challenges. I mean, it's not easy, and you have to kind of be in it for the long haul. Actually, Kim and I were just talking about this today. Like, for culture change, you need 5, 10, 15 years, and you're not going to see the benefit of a culture change until after you're gone from the position. So sometimes those investments you make in culture change don't happen until after you're gone. So you kind of have to do it for the good and because you believe in the mission, but not because it's necessarily going to help you tomorrow. But that level of consistency is important.
I had a question. Christine, one of the things I've noted is that our team, during this time has been inspired, but also has been derailed a few times. And I've heard a few things around just keeping the team like positive. And one of the things that I struggle with is I'm a very positive person. So I'm always like, cheerleading our team around. But every now and then things have been very difficult. So what we're doing now is trying to organize ways for that self-care but also organize ways of just managing what might be coming up. So now that we have this time or the space to actually plan ahead a little bit again, we have but do you have any tips on maintaining that sort of inspiration during these specific times? I know that it's constantly changing, which is different.
Yeah, I think self-care is really important.
Okay.
And finding ways to support self-care in ways that make sense for individual people are always important. I think supervisors are the worst at self-care and taking time for themselves because they're always trying to give to others. So your own self-care is important too. For me, honestly, it's just little things. For my team, I send sometimes people cookies that arrive at their house. You could send them a note by mail, which is totally unexpected. So there are the little things like that. But are there things that you can do that are bigger? Yeah. So the Star Awards are coming back. I think they're effective again April 1st. And so a small team award about a project that was done well as a group, rather than individual awards, I think can be powerful too, because then people feel really validated as part of a team. And so if your team is ready for a Star Award, go for it, do it right away. If they're not ready for a Star Award, think of a project in the next 3 to 4 months that they can aspire to and that they can get an award for in the next 3 or 4 months. Because the next 3 or 4 months are going to be, are we ready to come back? Have we developed our schedule? Have we done things? And so something like that, I think, would be great. Getting derailed. I think the thing about getting derailed or like the misalignment with leadership is like the way to get back alignment is just consistency. And so, you know, when I work with people who I trust and I admire, who consistently tell me this is off or this is wrong or something, sometimes they just have to be consistent. And you know, I know you're diplomatic, Alton, but somebody who can diplomatically and consistently tell me, you know, we need help with this, you know, I'll eventually respond, right? Because it needs to be responded to. And so I think consistency is really important there. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, Star Awards. Now's the time. There's money, a little bit of money, and it's not the amount of money; it's the recognition. And if you have great teams, ask your supervisor to acknowledge your team. Ask your dean or vice chancellor to stop in for 5 or 10 minutes to say how important their work is. Ask the chancellor to come by and talk to your division and just say, you know what, your team is critical and does important work. And sometimes just those small things really matter to people. So yeah, okay, we're at 12 o'clock. Anything else? Want to respect people's time.
I do want to respect people's time, and I do have a couple announcements from LEAD. I just did want to let everybody know we have another leadership series coming up in May that will be on productivity, managing your energy, and I'll go ahead and put the registration link in the chat. And just so everybody knows, we do have LEAD elections going on. So you can either nominate yourself or someone you know if you want to get involved with the LEAD board. Nominations are open from now until the 23rd, and that's available on our website. And our open positions are Vice Chair, Information Technology Chair, Program Chair, Marketing Communications Chair, Professional Development Chair, Administrative Chair, and Member at Large. So if you're interested or you know somebody who might be, go ahead and nominate them and we'll send them an application. Lastly, as always, we have a book to raffle off. This one is Broke: The Racial Consequences of Underfunding Public Universities. So our intern Brianna has been getting everybody's names. Brianna, if you want to go ahead and share your screen.
And then Christine, she referred us for this book. Christine, did you want to say a little bit about why you chose that book for the raffle?
Well, first of all, it's a great history of UCR and all of the amazing, there's some interviews directly with staff on all of the great work that they do, but there's a long there's a pretty good chapter about Chancellor Ray Orbach and trying to build the UCR culture. So when we talk about culture, you don't have to read the book from start to finish. There's some really great tidbits on how Chancellor Orbach built our campus, built our culture of diversity and excellence. And then there's some really good recognition of work that staff have been doing on campus. They interview advisors and people in the ethnic and gender programs and really celebrate that work and talk about how that work needs to be invested in at a state level. So a good recognition of all the work we do, as well as some real recommendations for how we can move the university forward. And I posted my presentation if it's useful, and I'm always available for questions. So reach out if I can ever be of help.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much. All righty, Brianna, go ahead and spin the wheel. Alex Ruiz, congratulations. We'll go ahead and send you an email so that way we can get the book sent over to you. So thank you everybody again for coming to this leadership series, and we look forward to having you come in May. And thank you again, Christine, for your presentation. That was amazing.